Promo Wrestling Podcast, episode number 3. We're back at it again because the people can't get enough of us. You're all a bunch of sick, sadistic lunatics who just love this stuff. You're eating it up like mad, like ravaging coyotes on the street. What is wrong with you people? Sorry. I mean, welcome back to a great podcast. We promised you guys guests, Mullins and I. We're a great duo. By the way, Matthew Mullins, how are you doing today?
Good.
Which belt are you currently repping?
The Undisputed Championship.
Oh, that's a nice belt. Does that one have real, genuine leather?
No.
Oh, so you're not a cow
Obviously
killer.
not.
You're not a cow killer. You don't. Oh, well, anyways, whatever. We won't get into that. We will not get into the ethics of animal killing on today's episode, but look forward to episode 47 when Mullins and I debate the ethics of eating and killing animals for sports and food. Anyways, we promised you guys a guest. Today we have, if not the biggest one, certainly one of the biggest guests, one of the biggest names in promo wrestling that we can bring you. I've deemed him one of the fathers of modern day promo wrestling. I think that's a pretty adequate title. I know Matthew Mullins is a big fan of his work. If you're in promo wrestling, I'm pretty sure it's hard not to be. We're going to have Matt Minnick on today. I'd have to clear up one thing, though. The last 2 episodes I've been talking about modern day promo wrestling, and I've been mentioning it as if this was kind of the dawn, but I've been sort of clued in as to some of the beginnings of promo wrestling, and actually that there were more videos than I thought, or Mullins thought, before 2.5 years ago. We're not going to get into all of that today, but I want to thank everyone for reaching out, and those people who actually did message me and tell me all about that. We're going to have them on, actually. I've got a few guests on that have agreed to come on and explain sort of the more backstory that goes back as early as 2008 on Facebook. That's what I'm hearing. I don't know. Maybe it's one big conspiracy theory. Maybe they're trying to bait me. Mullins, are they trying to bait me or what's going on? Are they telling the truth?
I have no idea on that one.
Well, we're going to figure it out. But anyways, as mentioned, so we'll still call it modern promo wrestling, postmodern promo wrestling. I don't know what the hell we're going to call it. Maybe we'll have a naming contest. If you win, I'll send you a VHS. It'll be a certified 5-bagger. Matt Minnick, you're on the line.
What's going on?
How are you doing, sir?
Well, first of all, thank you guys for having me. I love the podcast myself. I've watched both episodes so far, and I've been clamoring and wanting to get on here, as you guys both know, because I've private messaged both of you saying, let's get this done. So thank you guys for having me, for first off.
Well, we had to have you on. You're one of the biggest names. Mullins, how would you describe Minnick? I mean, not to blow hot air into this room, but I mean, really, we got to set the stage. Mullins, how would you describe Matt Minnick?
I mean, his work is freaking gold.
Well, thank you, Mullins.
Matt Minnick, you're one of the very few in this business who not only has seen it from a competitor's standpoint, but also from an owner's standpoint. With UPW, your wife Chelsea, you guys have done a bang-up job there, one of the most active feds on Facebook. How is this business not driven you crazy yet? How are you sitting in front of us talking to us? How are you not in delirium?
That is a brilliant question. I seem to ask myself that question a lot because there's so much shenanigans and BS, even as we know as competitors, but even extra on the owner side of it too. And thank you about UPW. Chelsea and I have worked really hard. Our admin team has worked really hard to try and make it more of a dynamic experience and something different from all the different groups that you and I and Mullins have all been a part of since our inceptions into this game.
And that's one thing we're definitely going to get into later is sort of the background, the theory, the operation of UPW, because I think that's what a lot of people are curious to find out. You have a lot of good things going on there. I think people are curious to see exactly how's it going there, but I think we would be getting ahead of ourselves if we didn't try and figure out exactly where Matt Minnick came from. So, Minnick, were you in the No DQ group that spawned all of this?
Yes and no.
Okay, go ahead.
The way that everything worked for me was kind of pure happenstance. I heard about No DQ Mania. I was actually in No DQ. I just kind of would check here and there, just kind of really for wrestling dirt along the way. And just out of the blue one day, I saw Paul Biello, or Havoc, as you know, he's been referenced in videos or in the promo wrestling side himself. He went into No DQ out of the blue one day, and he said, "I'm looking to create a Bullet Club. Who wants in?" And I was just kind of, I actually remember exactly where I was. I was in my hometown, which is about half an hour away, sitting in a Walmart parking lot while my wife was in the store. And I looked at him like, oh, the hell with it. I got nothing going on. So I quickly jumped in there. I'm like, oh, I'm Tamatonga. And then it just kind of spiraled from there. A few days later, I was introduced into IPW, Internet Promo Wrestling, which Kieran Bell, you guys have talked about so much already. And Paul introduced me into the Bullet Club. He taught me a little bit about what promo wrestling was. And then a few days later, I had my first match, and it was actually a tag team match with myself and Buckshot Brian against Tima Underlay and Stephen Barron.
Huh.
And the rest is kind of history.
Well, that right there, 4 pioneers right there, heavyweights that have grown into it. Do you remember that match? How was that first promo? Do you remember it at all, or is it?
Oh, it was atrocious. It was atrocious. Just for the aspect that I never really knew what I was walking into. They just said, hey, you're going to cut a promo. I didn't know what I was going to go with. I didn't have a gimmick. I didn't have the franchise at the time. I didn't even have my original gimmick at the time. I actually was sitting in my bathroom. I was sitting on the toilet, not like going to the bathroom or anything. I just closed the door and was sitting there. And I remember holding my phone and just cutting like a 2.5-minute promo and just firing off whatever I thought. And after that, when I went back into the Bullet Club chat, that was where my original gimmick name started, which actually was the Arsonist before John Walton took it. Paul Biello said that I had a lot of fire, and that's where the Arsonist came from. And it wasn't until I left IPW and you and I were going, it was just before you and I went head-to-head in CPW. I had just beat Paul for the World Heavyweight title there. And during my promo where I beat him, I said I was the franchise of CPW. And right there, it kind of clicked. And that's how the franchise gimmick was born, was right there in that moment.
Mullins, do you remember any of Minnick's work from the original days of IPW? What were your initial thoughts?
I mean, I know myself and Minnick, we faced off once back in the original IPW. That's the only time that we ever faced. And he beat me pretty bad.
I almost got kicked out of the group because of Mullins that day. This whole promo wrestling thing for me almost started or stopped before it started because of Mullins, and it wasn't even his fault. When him and I had our promo, once again, I didn't know all of what the landscape and the aspect was, and I just fired off at the hip at Mullins. And before you know it, there was people wanting me banned from IPW and things like that. And I'm like, whoa, what did I really do here? And I ended up having to message Mullins. I'm like, hey, I wasn't trying to be rude or anything. I hope you know that. But there was it was about a week span shortly after I started where they almost banned me just because of a match with me and Mullins.
I had no idea about that. That's crazy. Mullins, were you offended? Were you offended by what Minnick said? What the hell happened there? What did you do to spur Minnick into that? You almost ruined something great, you son of a bitch.
Well, my fault. I had nothing to do with it. I wasn't the refs. I wasn't a referee. I wasn't even part of management.
I'm kidding. Well, Minnick, so what were your thoughts on that initial IPW group? You came in, you had some matches, you got your foot in the ground, foot in the door, so to speak, of promo wrestling. What were your initial thoughts on it?
Initially, I didn't know what I was walking into. I remembered, because you had talked about like the past of stuff like that, and I thought about that as well when I was first getting in. And I remembered, the people writing into the magazines and doing things like that. And then there was a time when I was in like 6th or 7th grade, and I was at a friend's house, and he had went to this website, and he had this whole profile character that he created and everything like that. And they would automatically decide who the winners were and things like that. I created a character, but I was only in it for like 2 weeks because I was poor and didn't have internet back then. Thanks a lot, Al Gore. And we transitioned. And if it wasn't for Paul just randomly finding me and seeing where the game started, I didn't even really know what to walk into. Like, I knew who Blake was a little bit. I used to try and call him out with the worst British accent I could ever find to get his attention just because he was the champion, and I felt he kept ducking me. Walter Main was my first pay-per-view match, was against him, the old 1-7 himself. But at the time, we didn't know what we were walking into. None of us did. Like Baron and I, we never knew each other. You and I didn't know each other at the time, and I kind of just walked in blindly. You had just left the Bullet Club when I came into it, so I knew a little bit of all the nightmare that happened with you and Mullins leaving because you guys were still talking about it as I was just walking in. I'm like, I don't know who these guys are, but I see they're on that Bullet Club picture, and I was never in any of the Bullet Club pictures, and I led the damn group for a while.
Yeah, that was the one of the earliest and original club EFED wise.
Yep.
Because I know there for a while, Havoc Paul, he had an actual Bullet Club Facebook group.
Yes, he did.
Turned into the actual faction.
Wow, I didn't know too. Like you said, Minnick, I was kind of in the same boat. I kind of was just a spectator. I was only in no DQ for the stupid rumors. And I even hated that group a lot of the time because I hated some of the hot takes people would take. I'm pretty sure Seibel pissed me off more oftentimes than not with his, oh man, in no DQ, he was awful.
We never knew how terrible he really was, though, until we brought him to the EFEDs, though.
Yeah, and he's still doing his thing. But hey, he's controversy creates cash. He creates entertainment. I can't hate on that. So there you go. You're in IPW. You're doing all that. You transition, you lead the Bullet Club for a little bit. What was the deciding factor? You had talked about it. Me and you, we actually had a really good series, I thought, in CPW. I remember why I talked about it on the show, why I jumped to CPW. But what made you start to branch out from the original IPW into I'm assuming CPW was your second group. I'm pretty sure
yes, it was.
So what enticed you to do that?
There wasn't really much to do with it. In IPW, I kept clamoring to try and get Blake's attention, and I had ran through everybody. I was undefeated at the time, besides for that opening tag team match that we had. And I kept trying to get their attention, got their attention. I finally ended up sitting in my closet with a Batman hoodie on, and I made fun of Blake enough to the point that he gave me a match. I beat him, and then I kind of figured, all right, I beat the champ. I should be #1 contender now. Well, they just kept going like it never happened. So at the same time was when Eric and Paul and them were all talking about CPW. They added me in, and Paul talked to me, and he was like, hey, this is Eric Jesse's new landscape. We think I think you could really get that push you finally deserve here compared to to IPW. I had sat there and thought about it for a second. I was like, why not? We're not getting paid. This is something more of a hobby. Why not try to branch out and become more recognizable and become more of a brand than just one guy who's isolated into one company his whole career, so people don't really know where he is outside of that?
Yeah, that's exactly what I can't blame you for that. I think that's probably a big reason why that initial jump, why people were like, I need more.
I got to interrupt one thing real quick. You brought up a good point, Brett. You did say, you and I back in the original CPW, you are, and I've gone to record saying this to multiple people, you are the greatest rival I ever had. Because back at that time, nobody really knew who Little Licky was or who the franchise was. We were able to bounce off each other, and we ended up making something so great when we didn't even really talk that much and things like that. We just shot from the hip at each other. But it was so entertaining that you made me want to go next level and trying to find ways to beat not Brett Licky, but Little Licky. And I've gone on record saying that hundreds of times. So for, when you mentioned that, it was so early in our stages of what the game was for you and me. You still are the greatest rival I ever had.
Well, I would say, I would have to double that. I would say you and Baron, you two define a big genesis. Baron was IPW for me. He brought out something. I still have trouble, like that passion, that emotion. I reached into like the deepest depths of my competitive spirit in our IPW junior heavyweight matches. And then when it was the CPW World Heavyweight Championship, just a couple months after that with you and I in CPW, I still look back at those promos as some of the best I've ever done.
Yeah.
And I think it was like you said, we weren't planning. We weren't messaging each other. Okay, you say this, I'm going to say this. It was pure shoot from the hip. You say it, and then I'm going to just react, and I'm going to come right back at you. And I remember we were doing hype promos like galore.
I did one at Comerica Park in the middle of a Detroit Tigers game. I cut a promo in the middle of a baseball game because I was the world champion that time. It was just those extra little pieces that people weren't doing. And that's something that I always see as a struggle with a lot of the people that are coming into this game, because so many people look at it so vigorously and so seriously, but they've always got to try and find that niche, and they've always had problems finding that special niche in the world where that's their divot. And like you've done it with Little Licky and Raccoon Boy and Randy Catman and everything you've done. And Mullins has more gimmicks than there are gods on this planet. So it's just more of the aspect of finding those special niches. And I know now it's harder for a lot of the new guys that are coming in compared to back then, you know, with me, you, and Baron, because the landscape was so fresh. There wasn't a lot of those things where, you know, oh, that guy's already did it. Oh, you can't do that. There's a franchise already over there. That's how, you know, like you brought up Lorraine Carter in your last podcast. That's the only reason I found out Lorraine Carter even existed, was because somebody messaged me saying, hey, this guy over here is calling himself the franchise. You might want to check that out. Like, oh, excuse me? I was added over there. And ever since then, me and Lorraine Carter, we've always been really good friends.
Mm-hmm. Well, like you said, we kind of had fresh tarmac back in the days of when it all started. We had unlimited reign, open field, take what you want. And that's why I've said it on this podcast already a couple times, and I'll say it again, and maybe I'll see if you agree. This is why I think more than ever, this is when you said niche, this is where you're going to have to really start breaking down into, okay, maybe it's similar to this character, but it goes in a different direction.
Exactly.
But it goes in a different direction. And I think the only way people are going to be doing that is if they're cutting promos for their creativity instead of cutting promos just to try and get the win. What do you think?
I couldn't agree more with you. And I've had a lot of conversations with people over the last few months, and they'll always come to me, because I'm sure you get it as well, of, you know, can you give me critique? What do you feel I can be better on? How do I get to be, you know, like Little Licky or a franchise, or what is that missing piece? We've evolved this game, and people don't understand that. Like, Brett, I can come to you firsthand on it, because when you and I first got into this, we were always trying to figure out every single name of every single move we could. We had to create finishers. We did all that other stuff. We focused so much on the wrestling aspect that we never focused on the entertainment. With what you've done with like Raccoon Boy, or, you know, my prime example is Disenfranchised. Not just because it's me, because it's something I can actually really speak of too. With Disenfranchised, if you watch his actual promos, he never mentions an actual wrestling move. He never says headlock. He never says drop kick. He always says heaven later. But no one ever really knows what that is. It's about the entertainment. And people have forgotten so much of that because they're so used to wrestling. But if you look at even WWE, World Wrestling Entertainment, we're missing the entertainment part because we're so focused on the wrestling part. And that's where people have kind of gotten left in the dust behind when it's come to their characters. They've been so afraid to evolve out and trying to find that next piece or that next evolution of themselves. The franchise back then from IPW and CPW is completely different than the franchise that everybody sees today. And Disenfranchised, that would have never even came to fruition back in the day, because I would have never thought of that.
I think one of the best examples of that is Mullins. Mullins, your early promos, not video-wise, but written-wise for sure, you talked a lot about an actual working a wrestling match. And you said it in our last podcast yesterday that you eventually transitioned over and you started just cutting promos. So you're probably one of the best ones to attest to that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and I agree. I look back at some of the old promos and I'd be talking about what you said, like as soon as you kind of release those bounds that you can go anywhere, you can do anything you want, and you can have a raccoon fighting, or you can have whatever the heck you want. And that's what you got to do when the game gets like that. That's one of the advantages we have over real wrestling. It's in the fantasy world. We can
I use a bird cage as a weapon. Like, people bring in baseball bats, things like that. Disenfranchised brought in a bird cage and just, I'm going to use that. And it worked. He won. But it was that entertainment aspect, something different that people don't expect to see when they turn on USA or Pop TV or whatever it may be. Sky Sports 1, I got you. Whatever it may be, we always have those different things. It's just we always miss on the entertainment. We've always been able, and that's one thing that I've always tried to think of is when we come to like the ownership side of it is we as competitors have always thought what's best for me, what's best for me, what's best for me. And that is great because you can cement a legacy or you can go the opposite way and make it so people never want to work with you again. But when you come at it from the ownership aspect of it and you see what's best for my product or what's best for this product of this company, then you're able to evolve the character even more because you're not thinking of what's best for you, it's what's best for you in the environment around you.
That's exactly it. That's how the most successful, I think, in any form of wrestling is how does this better the community? I always laugh. You just reminded me. It's one of the funniest moments, I think, in promo wrestling history. Matthew Mullins cuts a promo on Stephen Barron talking about bringing
the machine gun?
Yeah, Batman, the Joker, the nuclear warhead, machine gun.
I just talked to Barron about that on the phone last week.
Oh, man. And he was so mad.
Those were some good-ass times. I don't regret those at all because I still feel like those were some of my best matches that I have had. Baron brought the best out of me. I might have lost to him all 3 times, but I have no regret.
He was so pissed off. I still remember those comments, and he was just like, what the hell is this? He was so angry.
He used a machine gun? How are you going to beat me with a machine gun, Mullins?
Oh, Mullins, I will forever be thankful that you did that.
It was a dark era back then.
Was that an IPW or CPW?
That was CPW.
That was all CPW.
Baron was the hardcore champion then.
Oh, man.
I challenged him 3 times for the hardcore title, unsuccessfully, may I add.
You don't say.
You tried. Batman and the Joker. I
love you, Mullins.
How could you not love Mullins? So we had your CPW. We have our feud, and we carry on. So how do you describe your time in CPW? Ups and downs for sure. What's kind of the history there? I'm curious to hear. I think a lot of people are.
Me too. That's why I had to light this. Kids don't smoke. The best way I can really describe my time in championship promo wrestling, tumultuous. The reason why I say that, back then, we were running a completely different monster than what CPW is now. And it's not saying that the product now is better than the product back then or whatever it may be. It's completely different eras. I will say with the era that we were in, it was a tumultuous era. It was a lot of the ups and downs, the growing pains of a fledgling promo company where there wasn't much of a direction other than we're just going to be different. But to it, you guys brought me on to be real. I'm going to air all the fourth walls with you now.
Oh, boy.
So with it, back in the day, you guys might remember, but some others won't. There was this whole big thing with Eric Jesse and myself back then when I was the leader of the Bullet Club, and me and you were feuding, Brett. And it just kept building to this whole thing where it was supposed to be me against Eric Jesse. And we've progressed that story for months and months and months. Here we are 2.5 years later, and I never got that match. The reason why was a certain person that I don't like to respect. His name is CC Sheldon. And I see the nodding from you all the way from Alberta, Brett. The reason why I had so many issues with CC is something that people don't understand. Back when I was CPW champion and I was feuding with you and I was feuding with a couple others, CC was a head booker and the head writer at the time. A lot of the companies, they don't do head bookers or head writers now just because, and not just because of CC, just in general because it can cause chaos. He was always trying to tell me what I was going to say or what I was going to do with you. And if you guys haven't kind of realized by now, I have problems with people trying to tell me what I'm going to do with my character, especially if you've never worked with me or you've never worked on my development or you don't know where I'm going with the character. Well, him and I ended up having a whole big falling out. I ended up losing the title to you. And shortly after, I left because there was just so much of the other shenanigans, and I realized that I wasn't going to get the match with Eric. And WPW was starting to boom a little bit, and BST was just broadening out, and some of these other companies started to sprout because of the tumultuous times of CPW back then. And I ended up just packing my bags, and I went to the other companies.
Well, I definitely remember that. I even remember that first. It might have been our first match for that CPW World Heavyweight Championship, and CC booked it in like Edmonton, Alberta.
Yep.
And I remember,
and you went to the Oilers Stadium. I hated you for that.
I did, right to the Wayne Gretzky statue, but I remember thinking like, oh, he's made it too easy, because here I can go to Rexall Place where they've booked it, and I can go to the Wayne Gretzky statue, and I can cut this promo. And again, I'm very proud of that promo, but I remember thinking, like, CC's kind of really showing a little bit of a Canadian bias here, because...
Hey, and I respect that. I'm half Canadian myself, but it's just more of, if we're having a world championship title match, and it's something that's supposed to be one of the biggest companies at the time, then it should be on a level playing ground. I'm not going to be able to just go up to Alberta, just like you're not going to be able to come down to Michigan real quick. So it's got to be somewhere else, like the Staples Center or the Hart Dungeon in Calgary, something where it's not a place where you can just do a hop, skip, and a jump, and you're right in front of the actual building. That's putting a person at the ultimate disadvantage without them even trying.
And, maybe it would have been different if it would have been, okay, we'll do match number 1, we'll do in Edmonton, match number 2, we'll do in Michigan, and then the third match, we'll set it for California or something, so we each get kind of a home field advantage. Never happened.
But you see, I played you back.
Yeah.
I got you back because they made it so you got the title in Edmonton. But when they did the next one, I'm like, all right, let's do popular vote.
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
You were so pissed at the time, too. But I knew that was my comeback at what CC was doing, because I knew nobody was going to vote. There were still, of course, going to be those people to vote for you. But I had a faction with me. I had everything else with me to make sure that I was safe. And I still only beat you by like 2 or 3. But it was more of the aspect that, I knew I had a one-upsmanship in that aspect. And yeah, at the time, was it shady business? A little bit. And it wasn't meant at you. It was meant at management.
It was a beautiful heel tactic. I mean, that got me hot. I was in Cactus Club, which I don't know if you guys have those down there, but restaurant up here in Canada. And I'm enjoying quite a nice meal with Candace. And I see that this is the rule that's coming out, that it's going to be a popular vote. And I'm going, what the hell? I don't have a faction. I don't got anything here. And it was a perfect heel. It was a perfect heel move. It furthered this story. But kind of how to do it, like you said. You weren't getting that much support. They were going to play it that way. You put it in your own hands.
Exactly. And that's one thing where a lot of people think that I've just been given opportunity, or how the hell did this guy just walk in and all of a sudden he's got the biggest sword in the yard? I don't come into places thinking I have the biggest sword in the yard. My reputation precedes me, yeah. But, like with Mullins or with you, Brett, anytime that you guys don't see me on camera and you guys message me, I'm completely a different animal than the guy that you see as disenfranchised or franchised. I understand, and at the end of the day, I'm still a person. Certain people, and I think it's just because of the basis of how long me and you go back, Brett, because like you walked into to UPW a few months back after I used every Stamos line I could come into just to get your attention without messaging you. And the second you walked in the door and you went on that whole Stamos rant, everybody watched and listened and learned and loved. When I went into TOPW and I finally got to say what I wanted to say about CC, and I had all that buildup from CPW, I let it all go, and everybody watched and they listened and they loved and they stayed. Why? Because we have more tenure, yeah, but the people actually believe the words that come out of your mouth and my mouth compared to other people because we've evolved.
Very true. And well, that's what tenure will get you. That tenure and that sort of respect will get you that. So you look back at CPW. Do you have any regrets? Any regrets during your time there?
Yes, I have a few. I'm actually back in CPW now, and I am a part of their Officer Justin Klein Memorial Battle Royal that they're having this weekend. But I'm not going in as franchised. I'm going as disenfranchised. With CPW, my biggest regrets are that you and I never had the proper culmination of a feud like we had back then. It was just one off and one off, even though you and I were busting our chops trying to make it the best product we could. And I never got the match with Eric back then. Those are the only two things I regret. I felt like back then I led by example. The Bullet Club was still okay. When Paul stepped away and I came in and bringing in the new members and everything like that, I felt like the groundwork was set. It was more of with CPW at that point, I had nothing else to prove. And that's when you become, all right, what's the next journey? And then it's WPW and BST, or, TOPW and all those other companies that are out there, which is hundreds upon hundreds now. I find more every single day.
And so after you left CPW or you moved on, what was your time in between then and UPW? How long of a time period was that? How did you find that time period? Was it different than the beginning? Clearly it'd be different than UPW now, but kind of describe that. How did that situation all work out?
There was a lot to that, and that's a really good question. When it comes to the transition era of me leaving CPW, because that was a long time ago now, I left CPW and I went to WPW and BST. With WPW, I'm actually their former world heavyweight champion as well. I was, I think I was actually I was their first world heavyweight champion then. Shortly after they opened the doors. No, in WPW. If I'm not mistaken,
right
because I lost
after,
at the Buckshot.
Yeah.
Because I ended up taking about 6 months away after BST and WPW. I did take about 6 months away, and I completely cut myself out of all e-feds, things like that, and nobody could find me. I needed to recharge the batteries. I needed to find myself, things like that. I felt like the character was getting dull. I felt like some of the things that I was wanting to do, some of the people that I was used to working with so much, the things have started to change. And it was smarter for me to back away and try to see the landscape than it was for me to sit there and fight it. So when I ended up coming back in, let's see, last year, I don't know the exact month, but I ended up going back to TOPW and I won their world title and I did the whole thing with CC and things like that. And business was booming in TOPW. At the same time was when I was saying I found out about Lorraine Carter, because the funny story with that, I've always been friends with John Walton. And he rubs a lot of people the wrong way, or he trolls or whatever it is, but he's always been able to talk to me. He messaged me one day and he's like, hey man, I'm in this group. It's called UPW. There's a guy in there who calls himself the franchise. I just wanted to let you know. Add me in. So I got added in there as I was still in TOPW. I started watching Carter's work. And at that time, Michael Glazenapp was the owner of UPW. And me and Carter did a feud for a little bit. I ended up winning their world title about 2 weeks after I got there. Me and Carter did a whole tournament where he did the whole finger poke of doom thing, which hadn't been done in a promo really. It was just something that was different. And UPW started booming and banging, because I always say when I got into UPW, there was 47 people in the group. And now, before I ended up having to create the new page, we had almost 400 people in there within a few months. And there's been a lot of aggressive expansion and things like that, which we'll go into later. But as far as like the EFED part of it, back in Mullins, you probably know the month better than me, where I ended up taking the TOPW title and I left. But I had a falling out with TOPW management, and not Shanti. Or I'm sorry, not Shanti, not Wally. Wally is one of the nicest guys in all of EFEDs, and I'm not saying that because he lives 10 minutes from my house. I'm saying it because the guy has a heart of gold. But with TOPW at the time, there was a transition going, but it was a transition I didn't like. It was a transition into the independent wrestlers. And by the independent wrestlers, I mean, at the time, it was Zach Taylor. He came in, he did a promo where he super kicked a guy and completely missed it. And I went into the comments immediately calling him on it, saying, hey, you missed it, you missed it, you missed it. And I still bust his chops about it every time I talk to him. And then we brought in all the other members of the House of Wolves. They all came into TOPW, and I was sitting here like, okay, I'm the champion, but all the focus is getting diverted away. And I kind of felt like, you know, in WWE terms, when CM Punk was the world heavyweight champion, but all the attention and the focus was on Triple H and Shawn Michaels and Cena and all those guys. And it's just like, okay, hi, I'm like the best one you have here that actually isn't stepping inside four ropes right now, or I'm sorry, four corners right now. Hello. And I got into it with Shanti a little bit, and I ended up saying to hell with it. And I was sitting there sitting on the couch talking to my wife. I'm like, I'm done with TOPW. Well, you're the champion. Watch me. And I went in there and I told people, you know, I'm taking my ball and I'm going home. If you want to say it like that, whatever. If you want this World Heavyweight Championship, come find me. I'll defend it anywhere else. I'm not defending it here anymore. And it kind of just fizzled out because the very next week, instead of them trying to talk to me and work it out, it became the ultimate world heavyweight titan that they gave to Carter. And it was just more of that was the beginning of the downcline, I felt, for them, because you had a perfectly good story that you it went downhill.
I felt the exact same way.
That's after Wally stopped booking full time, because after he stopped booking, I took over. It just started declining from there.
Yeah, it did.
I would say the downfall started there too. I know with Raccoon Boy, it was right around, like you said, when the shift to indies happened. I remember I was cutting promos there, doing it, you know, every week, and it eventually felt like it was just like, okay, all the focus is just these guys who, I mean, no disrespect to them, but it's kind of like, okay, what's the purpose here? Who are you really backing here? Are you backing the people who helped build TOPW, or are you just backing what I felt at the time, and maybe I still feel it, your new friends? And that might sound kind of rude, but hey, that's how I felt at the time, and it sounds like you felt the same way.
I don't disagree with you one bit. What was funny was I won the World Heavyweight Championship in TOPW. I beat Nick Harrison for it. And the next day, Jason Sanders, who plays Ethan Carnage in the House of Wolves, he went into TOPW and put up a video congratulating me. And it was just like, that really caught me off guard, because here you guys are, the indie guys, the indie darlings of the EFED world, basically. And here you are trying to basically break bread with one of the guys on that side, instead of it being, oh, to hell with you guys, and, you know, we're going to take everything over. You actually reach across the aisle and offered the olive branch, and I couldn't tell him no. And I ended up talking with Jason a lot over the next few days. And then I got to know the Wolves more, and, you know, with the Wolves, they're probably more polar love or hate than anybody that you're going to meet or deal with. Not Eric Jesse, not Kieran Bell, any of those. It really always comes down to the Wolves of either you love them or you hate them. But when you really get to know those guys, they are completely different animals than what you see. And I won't speak for them all, of course not. But Jason is one of my closest friends. And him and I talk almost daily, to the point where my wife or his girlfriend, you know, oh, you're talking to him type of thing. Yep, of course we are. Just because if it wasn't for him extending the olive branch, I would always be the guy leading the fight against the indies, which I was at the time in TOPW, saying, you know, this is BS. Like you were saying, you know, we helped build this, but you're just letting them walk in the door and take over everything we built. He was actually the one that reached across the side and said, you know, hey, we don't want to take over what you built. We just want to bring our flavor to it too. And we're sorry that it comes across this way, but that's not us. And once he did that and we talked, it was like, you know what? You're actually really right.
How good is Jason Sanders? That's another guy who I didn't know a ton about. Kind of got into him, started watching some of his promos. I faced him this weekend at CPW, something that's been building up. That's going to be, I'm really looking forward to that. How good is this guy? This guy is...
He's so fluent. And the thing with Jason or Ethan or whatever you want to call him is his words are so eloquent, and he delivers in such a beautiful fashion where it's just like, man, I don't know if I got my ass kicked or he tried making me feel better about myself. Like, because, you know, when you go against Little Icky or you go against a franchise, it's like beat down, beat down, beat down, beat down. But with Jason, it was more of that organic, more of that thinking man's beatdown, where it was more of, wow, you really got to think about it. And like, he really did do a brilliant presentation. And the extra things that they do that come along with it, like Jason filming a promo in a cemetery, or the other little things they do, whether even it's just with him on camera and you see the different colored contact in, those different types of performance aspect that we've all overlooked or we've all taken for granted. He looks at those finer details of the art, and that's something that I feel, and that's not me just coming to bat for Jason. I feel like that's something we could all pick up on.
He reminds me a lot of Nick Harrison, like how you said eloquent with words, and you're kind of left with his promos make you think.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
and I
Harrison,
think
I had
both of
one
those men.
match no, correction, 2 matches with Nick Harrison. He beat me for the CPW World Title, and then he beat me to retain it last summer. So
I
He's
love
the
Nick.
man. He's very good, and I look at him and Jason very similar.
Yep.
That I just think that they are, like you said, that's probably the best way to sum it up. Eloquent performers, very, very good at what they do. Every word is meticulously chosen, and they lead you along a path, a story almost. And by the time you get to the end of it, it's like, wow. Oh,
Yeah, every
man.
time it's just like, you can't argue it. It's just one of those things where it's like, well done, sir. How do you beat that? How do you one up that? Especially
Talent.
if you're going against him.
Yeah, pure talent. So we talk about that TOPW. That's interesting, and we will get into TOPW in a little bit here. But you mentioned that you get into UPW, and it's owned by Michael Glassenap. Did I get that?
Yeah, Glazing app. Yeah, Glazing app.
And so how does that progress? How do you eventually get the reins in UPW?
Long story on that. When I first came into UPW and I won the world title, like Mikey and Lorraine Carter and Triple M, those were the 3 guys I talked to the most when it comes to UPW at the time. And Mikey would always message me asking me, why aren't you an admin? Why don't you just be an admin here? And I never wanted to. And I said, I want a very hands-off approach with this. I want to focus on competition. I want to come in here, because I know on my side, if I keep bringing in the best product, I'm going to keep bringing people with me. And it was working at the time. And out of the blue, he messaged me one day and he asked me if I ever thought of owning the group. Nope. And he went on to tell me how he was looking to take some time away, or he something to that effect, or he was letting me take the reins because he knew I could have more star power with it, basically. And effective shortly a few days after, I ended up taking over full control of the group, and I have owned UPW ever since. And a lot of people ask, why was a new page created of UPW? I'll get to that one before you even ask. At the time when I took over UPW, everything was cool. We were going through our transition. I was bringing in that new breed, and I was going out and trying to recruit a lot of the people that you and I knew from all across the different groups and say, hey, it's me. Come over here and give us a shot. Let me know. And Mikey was still, my thing is if you give up ownership, go silent partner. If you're going to go into the group, especially if you give it to new ownership, don't keep going into there saying, hey, I was the owner. Hey, I was the founder. That type of thing. And it's the same way with business. You're not going to walk into a business that you just sold and walk in there while the new owners are trying to help everybody and be like, hey, I used to own this place. Hi, everybody. Because no one's going to care what you did. It's about what's going on now. So I ended up having to create the new page, and I brought all the new talent over, and well, not all the new talent, but all the talent that we had over, and everything just kept going like the same system that we've always been going. UPW has such a dynamic ecosystem to it now, really, where the spokes on the wheel keep turning and the wheel keeps moving. And I have such a fantastic admin team with it that I can kind of have the hands-off approach and just, hey, okay, here, okay, I'm needed here, and kind of guide the ship compared to back in the beginning where everything was sitting on my shoulders. And, when it comes to the different E-Feds, the one thing that we always look at as competitors, like I was saying in the beginning, me, how do I benefit me? When you move into ownership, you see that transition of, okay, I've got to dip my hands in multiple different things because I want to have the best product to try and go against those CPWs and those TOPWs and things like that at the time. Because you figure with UPW, when I first came in, it was a drop in the well. Not a lot of people really knew underground promo wrestling, knew who, a lot of these guys were. And it became my mission to try and showcase the best opposite product that we could really find and feature. which through myself, my team, things like that, we've been able to put our own little niche in the eFed world. And yeah, we don't have 2,000, 3,000, or 5,000 people in it, but the 250 that we have are a lot of the most driven, creative people, not on the admin side either, on the actual competition side too, where those guys go in every week and they're telling fantastic stories now. And that's where a transition of UPW happened from when I first took it over to now, is we had more of that Ring of Honor feel to it when we first got in, where, it was the best of the best. And, you would never really be able to see Brett Litke against Matt Minnick again, but here's the place where you might be able to. And bringing those eyes and that attention in. And once we got the attention and people started really following the product, okay, now we need to instill the stories. Now we've got to find those pieces where the well keeps building and the people keep coming in, because once you run out of so many dream matches, what do you have left? You've got to be able to evolve your own game. And that's where, us with UPW, I feel like we're really becoming some of the best at, if we're not the best already, is evolving the game and staying ahead of that wheel.
Well, I certainly think you guys have done, just from what I see, like you said, you had mentioned your superb admin team, the shows that you guys got running. There's always action, always activity, always something going down in UPW. You go onto that page, you're always going to be having new content to look at. So that's one of the best things that can happen in promo wrestling for a federation, is simply activity. Activity, why should I care? UPW is one of the best. Now, you mentioned your admin team, but one of the things I'm curious about with UPW, I think I remember correctly, I hope I remember correctly, your wife, Chelsea, I think I remember her very first promo. How did she get involved in promo wrestling? I think if you asked a lot of people in this game if they even show their promos to their girlfriends, most will say not. I'm lucky. I have a girlfriend that's filmed Raccoon Boy promos, so she's on board. But I think a lot of people don't. What about you? What's the situation with you? What happened with Chelsea? How did she get involved?
This it's kind of a crazy little situation with me and Chelsea when it comes to the eFed world, because until UPW really came around, she didn't know I did it. I always had the franchise as like something where she would be gone, or she was at work, or she was at the store, or something like that, and I would always have those prime times where I could go into character real quick. She'd get home, go back to, hey honey, how are you, type of thing. I ended up telling her that I was doing eFeds, and I explained to her what it was. And originally she thought it was dumb. And most people do when you first hear it, because you never have that full detail. It's one of those things where you kind of really got to check it out for yourself, and then you kind of get the feel for if you like it or if you don't. Her and I were kind of BSing one night, and actually, if you don't mind, would you mind if I get another guest speaker and she can tell you herself?
Let's do it. Let's hear it from her.
That would be excellent.
Chelsea! Hold on. I'm waiting for her to come as we speak. The guys would like to talk to you for a second.
This is good, because I'd like to hear it from her, because this is one of the most unique situations in promo wrestling. An actual...
Why are you in the scary rape room?
So, gentlemen,
You're in the scary rape
here
room.
she is.
Hello, Chelsea. How are you on this fine evening?
Sick as fuck.
Oh, well, that's not good.
No.
We were just asking your husband, who has so graciously joined us on this episode, how you came about into promo wrestling. As I was saying, this is one of the most unique situations in promo wrestling, where a lot of people don't really show their significant other this side of them or this hobby of them, because, like Minnick said, to a lot of people it's dumb. But what sort of got the ball rolling on your end to come into it, and not only come in and spectate, to come in and be one of the most active members in the community?
So basically, I was sick and tired of you fucks taking up all of his time, so I figured if you can't beat him, join him. I mean, that's kind of realistic. Anyway, but no, really, that was mostly what it was. Like, that was our way to... He put so much time into this, so I was like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? Why are you always gone? And then I figured out why I was always gone, and then we actually got to spend time together. And now I'm in deeper than I could even... I can't get out of it now. So now I'm just fucking here and promoing myself, and yeah, it's kind of dope. So I like it.
Do you guys find that it's a hobby. There's no denying, like you said, you spend a lot of hours towards it. It's a significant hobby. Do you think that you guys have maybe not come closer? That might be a little bit of a cliche thing to say, but is there some form of improved connection, or you guys enjoy your time in a newfound hobby? I mean, it's not every day that couples just get to find something that could take up hours and hours of their week that they both enjoy doing together.
Yeah, I think I think it's probably brought us kind of a little closer, even if that is cliche, like you said. But yeah, we it gives us something to not fight about. Not to say that there hasn't been fights, because there has been fights. Like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? You can't talk to people like that. That's totally happened. But it's even happened to me. He's even told me, "You can't do that to people. Fuck them. They piss me off." No, it's awful. But no, it's been a good thing. I think it's been a good thing.
One of the best things that I think you guys do, and I think most people would agree, is you're sort of live, off the, shoot from the gun. You guys just talk. Typical Minnick thing. Both of you have that same characteristic. I mean, God, of course, just get out there and just shoot live and just who cares. How did that start? Why? Like, that's one of my favorite things you guys do. How did that kind of blossom?
I think it started in the early, let's call it the Glazing App era.
Which I was talking about.
Where Matt got brought in, and there was like 60 members there at that
47.
time? 47. So they needed something to like liven it up, and he's like, "Hey, I'm going to do this live video." I said, "I want to do it." So I got out some booze, and there was something with a beer bottle. I actually drank a beer bottle from my boobs. That was a thing. But anyways, it evolved into a way for us to like interact with everyone, which was really cool. And I think that really built, like, I've gained personally, and I know Matt has too, a lot of friendships from this. And that was a way for us to interact without having to be in character all the time. And get to know people. They got to know us, and I hold nothing back, so they got to know a lot about me. It was fun, and we haven't done it as much as we used to. We've both gotten pretty busy, and like the promoing takes precedence over everything. But maybe we should do that again sometime. Yeah. So yeah,
We'll bring the show back.
Yeah, I think that's one of the, I don't know, I think that's one of the most unique things that UPW offered, was this kind of look into your lives, this interaction. People enjoy that stuff. I like to be able to, get on and talk with the owner and co-owner, or the two co-owners, I guess I should say. Hey, that's something incredible. So no, that's really good. That's really awesome what you guys are doing, and it kind of transitions into what I was going to say next, because we covered UPW, we covered that transition, we covered how you came in, and I guess now the best question is, we've got Matt Minnick and TOPW, which just recently closed down, but I'm curious to figure out what's happening there, what's happening with UPW. What is on the docket for the future of UPW, TOPW? How is that sort of going to evolve here?
You are asking the $1 million question. And that is a question where few people have messaged me just because they had questions about. Let me start with the whole beginning of the TOPW transition. A few months ago, I was actually sitting in this room right now, which she calls the creepy rape room.
It really looks like a creepy rape room.
It kind of does. A
little bit. I've actually filmed some promos in here, though. I was sitting in the chat with Carter and Triple M, and the joke came about of, Minnick, have you ever thought of taking over TOPW? Nope. Why not? You have such a good thing here. Why not think about it? I don't know. And it kind of just left at that. And a little while later, I noticed how much TOPW was in a downfall, in a downswing at the time. And I was sitting there, and it kind of came to me with an idea. And I ended up talking to Jason Sanders about it. And then I went and talked with Chelsea about it and things like that. And this idea developed into this whole other being in itself. And with TOPW, I'm going to go through every detail of it just because, there's going to be people that still have questions and things like that. And I want to explain all those details and questions. With TOPW, yes, the doors have officially closed now. I am not officially taking over until May 28th. With May 28th, I will be taking over, and TOPW is getting remodified and remarketed and rebranded. I have new logos already made up, and we're slightly tweaking the name a little bit. It's not Titans of Promo Wrestling, it's Titans of Podcast and Wrestling. We're going to still keep the soul of the name, though. What I've done is I've reached out to multiple different EFED related and our friends and things like that. And a lot of them run separate podcasts, like the Villains Gospel, like the House of Wolves had. Nick Harrison was looking at having one. Her and I with our live show. Why not bring them all under one roof? Why not have it so we can have all this creativity of community and things like that, and all our different podcasts and all our different views in one generalized area where we can expand and have more of that network feel to it, because that's something where UPW has kind of thrived, is with, like you were saying, the whole breaking down the realism, and you see more of Matt and Chelsea compared to the franchise and the Monarch or whatever it may be. You're seeing those people. And with Nick Harrison or the Gospel and things like that, we're going to push the podcast in and revitalize and get those people in. And with the EFED part of it, a lot of people have asked me questions as far as, is the EFED part dying? No, the EFED part is not dead. I'm rebranding that too. I have actually talked with some other groups and different things like that, and we are doing super tournaments with TOPW in July, and it'll be more of a pay-to-play type of option. As far as the exact price, we don't have quite yet, because that's going to base off the amount of individuals that are coming in. And I've tested and talked to some people about the idea, and all of them are in so far. But with the TOPW Super Tournament, or I'm calling it a Super Cup, the winner actually gets a replica world title like what Mullins has on his left shoulder there, mailed to their home for whatever the entrance fee is. And instead of paying $400 or $500 for those same world titles that Mullins is destroying by re-leathering them, they can get a brand new one sent to their door for $10, $20, and you're really investing in your character at that point. Because it's one thing, like for Disenfranchise, I go buy tea light candles, or I put on a pea jacket, or whatever it may be, but you're really doubling down and gambling on your character. Because if you really believe in your character and you put that, let's say, $15 up and you win, you actually get a big gold like Ric Flair wore mailed to your house. That's amazing.
Hey, I'm all for it. When you told me, you had kind of let me in a little bit on the in of it, what your plans were. And to me, it sounds like a fantastic idea. I think that anytime we can have these sort of hubs where we're bringing people together instead of trying to separate and tear apart, I think that's a good idea. PWS has gone a long way in doing that. I think TOPW can carve out another section and do the same thing, where we're again promoting some community, promoting some, hey, we all found each other. We all found each other under this crazy hobby that not a lot of other people in the world even know about, would even consider liking. Maybe we have more similarities than we do differences. Maybe we should try and come together instead of coming apart. I think that's exactly what your plan is on. Now, one thing I am curious about is, Matthew Mullins, you've been one of the most invested in TOPW almost since its conception. You've been along every step of the way. You took over as head booker. What is someone like you, who's had their feet on the ground of TOPW for, I mean, it's almost years at this point, but, at least over a year. What are your thoughts as it transitions over to Minnick and it gets sort of this facelift? Are you happy to see it getting that transition?
At first, it was like mixed feelings, just confusing, but now I'm thinking maybe it's for the best that as a full-time EFED, because just at the end there was just way too many mistakes made, and I don't see it ever good as it once was if it just kept being opened as an EFED.
Yeah, that's why I think there's a lot of potential here. So kudos to you for doing that, Minnick. And hey, you've sold Mullins on it. Mullins hates closure and change. So if you've sold him on it,
trust me, I know. And that's a problem that a lot of people had, is they had the sour taste in their mouth because I was closing an EFED. or I was closing down the door and UPW is taking over and all this other stuff. It's not UPW taking over. This is a completely separate entity that I'm working on.
UPW exists by itself.
Yeah, like I was saying earlier, UPW is in its own being now to the point where with her and the admin team and things like that, I'm more hands off and I kind of just dip my hand in as needed. But with TOPW, it's more of revitalizing that 5.1 thousand people that sit there. That is the biggest EFED group population-wise I've seen out of any group. And with having 5.1 thousand, they should be a lot more active. And I mean no disrespect to Mullins, having the 3 matches on a card where a couple people don't show.
Oh,
I'm sure
agree.
Mullins would agree. Yeah, it's hard. It was
frustrating. No, because I was booking cards. I was trying to get the results up full time, and just all the no-shows. I think at the end of the day, the damage was done.
Yep.
Fair enough, but I think there's a huge base there to be tapped into, huge potential. TOPW.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
When I think of TOPW, I still think of the good times I had with Raccoon Boy there and with other moments.
Oh, yes. TOPW, even through all the bad times, it still had a lot of good moments.
And I think that's one of the best things you'll be able to capitalize, Minnick, is a lot of people still have good feelings about that Fed. And I think a lot of people...
I mean, when TOPW was first opened, it was unique. It was something that hasn't really been done before. Instead of using championship belts, you were using championship rings.
I didn't like that idea.
You didn't like that?
I watched you guys talk about it before, and I've always been a detractor against the rings. The reason why I say that is when it comes to rings, if you're a world heavyweight champion, you should be able to walk in the room like Ric Flair did or something like that, and people can see that piece. Like, that is, holy crap, that's Ric Flair right there. That is the guy. And with a ring, you don't really get to showcase that unless you're like trying to activate your Wonder Twin.
Look at my ring, bitch!
Like, form of Raccoon Boy. Like, it's those things to me. With TOPW though, it was more like you were saying. There's so much good, and there's such a legacy that comes about that group because I know how much Shanti invested into it, and Wally invested into it, and Mullins, and Melissa, and Angel, and so many of the others. And I know when I went live in TOPW, Mullins didn't even know that I was going to be going live in TOPW because we kept it all so close to the chest.
None of us knew.
Yeah.
Dante didn't even tell us nothing.
There was 4 people that knew, and I'll explain all of the takeover and everything like that people want to call it. I don't really call it a takeover. With TOPW, it was me and Jason and Wally and Shanti that were all in the chat room together, and you guys will be able to see that here very soon. We're actually going to be doing videos together and things like that, transitioning TOPW to us from Wally and Shanti.
I said I'd be right back. You trying to get all up in the shot?
With the way that everything's envisioned, though, I had a person that asked me a question. Actually, it was Jason. And when I first presented the whole rebranding idea, he asked me, what's your end game with this? Because, Brett, as you can attest to, when you talk to so many different eFed owners and you say, all right, what's the end game for this Fed? You don't have an end game. It's more of, well, we're going by the seat of our pants type of thing. TOPW is the only company that has an end game that nobody really realizes, because what the ultimate vision is of this whole thing with TOPW and all the different eFeds that we do, in my mind, is a few years ago, ESPN did a whole special on e-gaming. And they did the whole 30 for 30 on it, explaining how, people that playing World of Warcraft and things like that, all of a sudden they're live competing on ESPN, and e-gaming is not a sport. And they're competing on ESPN for $1 million in front of live audiences and things like that. Why can't we, through the different kinds of rebranding and remarketing and things like, My Little Brainchild and stuff like that, make it so instead of a 30 for 30 special being on e-gaming, we have it so it's on e-fetting. And who's to say, 5 years, 10 years down the road, you don't see Raccoon Boy against Disenfranchised inside Madison Square Garden in front of 10,000 people competing for $1 million or something like that. It's the next evolution of the game. We started in magazines or whatever it may be. We've progressed to Facebook. What's the next level?
That's where TOPW becomes the next level, because that's the closest that any of us really have to making it that 30 for 30 moment. All I'm kind of doing is guiding the ship to try and get us to that point.
I think there's a tremendous opportunity with this business. One of the biggest hurdles will be competitors having to overcome the fear of their friends and family seeing them doing this, because there is sort of a stigma with promo wrestling, in wrestling in general, this especially. But like you said, I mean, there's e-gaming now, which is one of the biggest things going, where people are just playing video games. And if that can be accepted, if these tournaments of Overwatch and other games can be accepted, I don't think it's too much of a stretch to think that with enough activity, with enough passion, with enough emotion, with enough talent, with enough drive, with enough proper players pedaling and steering the ship, such as yourself, such as some others, that this couldn't grow and blossom into something more. I show a lot of promos, I mean, from the top guys in this, to friends, to family. They love it. They eat it up. They like it. And that tells me that if these guys can like that stuff, these people who don't even watch wrestling, I think that they might actually enjoy joining these groups as spectators, and who knows where it could blossom from there. It's like a lot of people, they might not listen to rap, they might not listen to rap games, but they'll listen to a rap battle. They'll listen to that. I can't remember the name of it right now. It's eluding me, but there's the King of the Dot. They'll listen to that because rap battling is different than getting into a whole genre. Or, you know, they'll love the scene from 8 Mile, the scenes where Eminem freestyles against the other ones, you know, be rabid. And they like that because it's something different and it's something entertaining. We already talked about it. eFed Wrestling, how we do it here, we have such a creative outlet. The sky is the limit. I don't disagree with what your take is. I think the potential here is huge.
And here you brought up a great point, Brett. When you're sitting here explaining the stigma, there is so much of a stigma when it comes to eFeds. No joke. I just told my mom and dad 48 hours ago what I've been doing for the past 2.5 years. Like, they never knew about eFedding. And I explained what I do to them. I explained the 2 different characters. My daughter knows that I play Disenfranchised because she always makes fun of me for using the silly voice, basically. We've had such a stigma, and it's partially because of what we always see on TV. When we turn on USA Network, especially with all 3 of us when we were growing up, we saw the Stone Colds, we saw The Rock, we saw Hogan and Flair and all those others, and we looked at them as unicorns off at the distance that, man, no matter what I do, holy cow, look at them, they're just stars. We created our own stigma based off of television and based off of, man, these guys get inside the ring and they actually beat the crap out of each other, and, you know, all these different evolutions of the art of wrestling. But what's organic and what's beautiful about the eFed side of it is it's just like back in the day of the AWA and things like that. Before Hogan was Hogan and he was in AWA, it was more of, there's all kinds of talent all over the place, just nobody's taken the vision to find that. And right now, especially with all of us in the last few years, anybody can play this game. And that's what makes it really fun, is it doesn't matter if you live in Texas or the Philippines or England or Australia, everybody can play and everybody can have that creative outlet. We don't have that stigma because we don't have those Austins, Hogans, Rocks to make it on the entertainment side. We've just got to break through our own personal stigmas of it. And once we get past the personal stigmas of it, I think we can succeed a hell of a lot more too.
Hey, and you talk about a chance for everyone, and that is something that this little community offers more than anything. Because if you look at it, if you want to be a wrestler, there's certain physique, there's certain, I mean, such a financial commitment, a lifestyle commitment, all of this. Whereas if you want to join this, you want to have some fun, you want to be creative like a painter putting on the canvas, and you want to tap into who you are as a person, you want to meet some friends, it's open to anyone. And hey, that goes without saying for even certain conditions. Steven Solmich is one of the best I've seen. And he would never get that opportunity anywhere else. But in eFed Wrestling, not only does he get the opportunity, He's embraced. He's encouraged. And I don't even look at him as different. Like it's hey, this guy is awesome. He's just like everyone else, because in this, it's all about the character. It's all about who you're playing. It's all about what you're trying to do creativity wise. And here we are to support you. So I think you're right on the money there completely.
Yeah. Steven Samich, he's a great example because, I mean, honestly, eFeds, when it comes to now, he is the heartbeat of eFeds, if we really think about it, because the guy competes in a million different companies. Half the groups that Samich is competing in or has competed in, I've never heard of. And the guy is never late, and he always goes above and beyond, and he always tries hard in every single thing he does. And I cannot give that guy enough love and respect for everything that he does, because let's be real, with me, you see me 2-3 times a week, maybe, if I have a promo or whatever it may be. That guy is on there daily through the different groups, 2, 3, 4 times a day. And he just keeps going and keeps going. And there is not anybody in eFeds I love more than what I feel for Steven Samich, because that guy is the heart of eFeds, I feel.
Oh, he's awesome. And you look at his feud with Mullins there. His feud with Mullins was one of my favorite things, you know, just a fun little, what was it, over a Punisher?
It was just a one match.
Well, you guys were chirping each other over the Punisher shirt, so it was a little.
I forgot about that.
2 matches. Yeah, we never got the results for the second match.
Well, that's something that maybe in the future. I think that's great. He's awesome, and like I said, there's a ton of potential here. So we've talked about it, the future of promo wrestling, where we kind of see, and I think what we're going to do in the future is we're going to have you back on, and we're going to keep. I want to go into deep. How could I describe it? Hypothesizing sessions with you, Matt, with you, Chelsea, and kind of sort of flesh out where we think what can be done, where it's going to grip, you know, where we can get that next level. I want to do that. I'm sure you guys will be down, and we can really dig into exactly what we think we can see in the future and give updates on where it's heading, especially with your new group, TOPW, your existing group, UPW. But I guess the next question is, we know where you're at as an owner, but what's next for Matt Minnick as the competitor? We have disenfranchised. This is Mullins, one of his favorite things. I'm sure Mullins loves the gimmick, says it's one of the best things he's ever seen. Am I correct there?
Yeah. If PWS was holding its award show now, like its yearly award show, I guarantee it, Disenfranchised would probably win Gimmick of the Year.
And I have to stop that because I've won it 2 times in a year, and I'm not losing the hat trick. So I'm going for third.
When I feuded enough, like, come on, Brad, let me have one. We feuded enough, man.
I put out a Craigslist ask for Matt's next promo. We're looking for a virgin to sacrifice in his next one. So. No hits yet. No lights yet.
You asked a good question on that one. What is next for me? When it comes to the competition side, I don't know. Because you figure with franchise, I've done everything that I said I wanted to do. I wanted to go and I wanted to win every major world heavyweight championship that the 3 of us can sit here and recognize, and I did that. And, you know, here comes something else. I've had conversations with certain people, and I think, you know, this is a conversation that's never been really made public. I'll just kind of say it. I don't understand why people come into eFeds wanting to go mid-card. I always walked in, even when I walked into IPW, I never looked at the junior heavyweights. I never looked at the Intercontinental. I always looked at the dude at the top of the card. I wanted to be that guy. I wanted to be the face. I wanted to be that mouthpiece because, let's be real, I don't really ever shut up. But when it came to the franchise, I felt like I had done everything I could do because what else really was there? And I was joking with Anthony McFly, who plays Onions, and Triple M and Lorraine Carter, and they're like, well, ever think of thinking of something different? No. And I know this is where Mullins is going to be happy, so I'm going to explain the whole thesis of where Disenfranchised came. We sat there talking, and they're like, well, how would you figure out a new character? I don't know, because people are so enthralled with what I say is franchise that it's more of that CM Punk, that loudmouth fourth wall type of shooter that I don't know what I could really do to kind of reinvent. and it was proposed to me to, well, what's the opposite of franchise? And I thought of the word disenfranchised. And then it became, I started out as just kind of a joke, trying to do my own little impersonation of Broken Matt a little bit and just voice clips with these guys. And before you know it, a couple of days later, I did a promo as disenfranchised, which is on my YouTube, god awful as it is. And it kind of just was born from there. And what's nice about disenfranchised compared to franchise is kind of like I'm starting back over. And I'm reinventing myself, even though I've transitioned franchise into the promo a little bit too. And it started out as a Broken Matt kind of playoff, and then it kind of went its own way. And now disenfranchised is its own thing. But it allows new opportunities. I never was the PWA World Heavyweight Champion when I was the franchise, but I am as disenfranchised. I'm a 2-time champion there now. And it's those next things because, when it comes to the game, Brett, you know more than anybody because me, you, and Stephen Barron have had these conversations, is about cementing legacy. And, when they look at the game 10, 15 years from now, how do you really want to be remembered? Do you want to be the afterthought, or do you want to be the guy who is leading the charge? And I've always wanted to lead the charge, but with disenfranchised, it's a whole different way of leading now. So I'm kind of learning as I go, which is awesome.
With your cult?
It's not a cult, it's following.
It's a cult.
It's following, the difference. But you see more of the creativity coming out of me compared to me just seeing, okay, Brett Lickey's sitting here shooting shit at me. I need to go on there and shoot shit back at him. You're actually seeing me having to think outside the box. And like I was saying, using a bird cage as a weapon, or, mixing up my words and going into every company I go into. And every time I'm disenfranchised, I always mess up the words of the company in the beginning. It's not Underground Promo Wrestling. It's Promo Wrestling Underground. There's always those slight tweaks because it's something that we don't see. I've been able to evolve myself without changing the core, because like you said in your first podcast is, there's franchise and there's disenfranchised, but at the core there's still Minnick. And that's really where it is at the end of the day, you still see a lot of those same tendencies that I've played and what I am, but you see it in more of that creative, organic type of mannerism compared to me just shooting from the hip, and what you see is what you get.
I think that's one of the best ways to, like you said, cover new ground, see different perspectives, challenge yourself, take new steps, and grow as a performer. I know I wouldn't have seen the landscape differently if I didn't start creating new characters and churning them out. Mullins gets a lot of flack because he has so many gimmicks, but I have to give him credit because that's how you tap in. That's how you find who you are as a competitor, by giving yourself the chance to live through a new character. Mullins, he got a crash course lesson that the Mullins Express gimmick was not who he was. And it was a one-way ticket to failure. But
the Mullins Express.
Great gimmick. Bring it back, Mullins. But with you, and you brought in this disenfranchised, and like I said, it was like, wow, this is him. Completely different. He can go over, and now he can kind of come at it from a whole opposite angle. And then what's next after that? I mean, it completely opens the door. It's exciting, and people like it. People like when you bring in something new.
And that's the one thing that's really crazy. Let me ask you a question, Brett, because I heard you ask the question to Mullins the other time that I was watching. How many times do you recut your promo?
It depends, because I try to describe this, but it's really hard. There's some times when I'm in a feud or I'm against someone, and I'm sure it'll be the same way this weekend against Jason Sanders, where I hype myself up in the days leading, and then it kind of the hours leading, the minutes leading, and I get so hyped up that it's just a one shot, especially for the little Licky character. This is me. Bam, 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 bam. I rattle it off one take. It's all straight from the emotion. I'm not thinking. I haven't pre-planned anything that I'm going to say. It's what's coming straight out of that character's mindset. With Raccoon Boy, there's editing that goes into it. So I have to sort of adjust. Randy Catman, that's just we won't even get into Randy Catman. That's a fucking, that's a wild. Thanks, Mullins, for allowing Randy Catman to be. But so I don't know. I guess it would depend. But if it's really something I'm passionate about, I know the promos I cut against you in CPW, against Baron, And against any of the big matches I do, maybe 2 at the most, but usually it's just, let's go. Capture that raw emotion.
I've reshot 16 times before.
Oh, jeez. What about you, Minnick?
Everything is first cut.
There you go. I figured.
Everything you
Except for
see.
that one time when Tommy walked in.
Yeah, besides for PWS one time where my son walked in mid-promo, everything you see, whether it's franchise or disenfranchised, everything I do is the first cut. Because I always feel like if I don't get it out, I'm going to miss something, or the emotion's not going to be the same, or I'm going to overthink it, where I know, like, it's almost stupid. But when it comes to disenfranchised, I almost have to get into that mode. And I put in my headphones like I have right here, and I'll listen to the same few songs in a row, and it kind of gets me into that mindset of, okay, I know I'm going to be really screwed up here. I can't even explain it, but the music kind of sets the mood for disenfranchised. And it's just, with the first cut thing, it's always been a habit of mine. I'm so afraid of doing it again that I'm going to miss something big, and then I got to do it a third time, or a fourth time. Where I know, if, like earlier today with BTTW, I went in there and cut it live. It's just more of, I know I have the general bullet points in my mind of where I'm going to go. I usually have 2 or 3 bullet points with every person that I have. And then when I hit record, it's just whatever happens, happens. And half the time, I don't even know everything I say until somebody tells me in the comments or they message me. And everything you see is just, I hit record, and it's like the second I hit record, you see completely different out of me, and what you see is not what I am at that moment. And when I come back in, then you see, or I'm able to reevaluate and be like, oh, okay, I did say that. Oh man, I didn't even realize that, because I want to lose myself in the moment, because if I don't lose myself in the moment, I might forget it.
I 100% agree. I've had it happen where I'm doing a promo and I'm doing it that first cut, and I say something that I really like, and then maybe I get out of my mind, I stumble, I block, I'm like, God damn it, stop.
Yep.
But I liked something I said so much that now in my second and third take, I'm trying to replicate that. But as I'm trying to do that, I'm stumbling over those words because I still have other stuff I want to say. It takes me out of my element. So I think that is the best way to do it. Mullins, how do you do it? Are you a first cut guy, or are you a retake guy?
God, no. No. Sometimes, every so often I get it on first cut, but most of the time it takes me 10, 20 times.
Oh, wow. So you're...
that's where you got to find that mindset. Like with disenfranchised, I have to find that piece. I listen to, like I say, I listen to the same few songs on repeat in my ear. I always listen to Bring Me the Horizon, Doomed, and Shadow Moses. They're both off their live album that they did, but I listen to those 2 songs the most because Doomed and Shadow Moses, it kind of works for how disenfranchised is anyways. And that gloomy, ominous type of music, even though it has a message, it works to get me in there. And then, you know, like with Doom, that's my new music that I use for disenfranchised. I did use Shadow Moses, but I'm able to emphasize when I know those points in the music, like when I know it's coming off the chorus and I know it's going to have a heavy guitar riff. I'll snap my head, I'll influx my voice, those little extra things where when you're watching it, Mullins, and you look back at me and it's just like, wow. And you don't even realize it at the time. But when you watch them back and you're like, man, he said that perfectly, and it drives the moment home, then you start realizing, damn, okay, it's a showmanship to what we do. And we miss the showmanship because we're so worried about the wrestling. We have to, like, I've had conversations with Wildman Wally and things like that, because we over focus on the wrestling and we under focus on the entertainment. And if we can make it so people are entertained, that well becomes, like I was saying in the beginning, that well keeps feeding and feeding and feeding, and people want more because it's organic and it's not so complacent. Like with disenfranchised, I have no idea what the hell I'm going to do with my own gimmick right now. It's just more of, I listen to the music, it's like, you know what, all right, that's not a bad idea. Or I talk with Jason and some of the other guys in the cult that she's talking about. I call it the following.
It's a cult.
And we bounce ideas off each other now, but a lot of the stuff you see with disenfranchised, there's not a thought process really to it. It's just more of cut, go.
Well, and you look at the guys that actually do, like, some of the most memorable promos of all time, they go out there live. They don't get a second cut. They don't get a third cut. It's straight from the hip. They have to get it right once. And if you look at some of the most memorable promos of all time, a lot of them don't even mention the ring. They're talking about just the pure emotion, the pure character versus character. They might say, I'm going to destroy you, but they're not talking about, oh, I'm going to wrap you in a sharpshooter and I'm going to put you into this. And then from there, I'm going to, no, it is purely about who you are as a character and that emotional storyline that's been written in a really good story in wrestling. And that's all they're talking about. That's what we care about in wrestling.
That's a problem that a lot of people have too, is so many people want to be fed story. So many people want to be told direction. This is a game where it's literally like those old school books that we'd get as kids where it would turn to page 37 to follow the knight into the cave. And you go to page 37 and the knight dies and you quickly go back and you're like, nope, that never happened. E-Fetting's the same way. This is a game where you literally go out and choose your destiny. You get to go out there and say, I'm the franchise, or I'm Raccoon Boy, and you get to go from that start spot. And so many people have that disconnect because we're so used to, we watch WWE or we watch Impact, God help the people that do, and we see these stories and we always think, man, they're feeding these guys these points because in WWE they hand them, their bullet point sheet and that's what they go off of. But with me and you, Brett, there wasn't a lot of communication between me and you ever as far as story. It was just more of, you have Brett Litke. Okay, cool. And we were able to make magic. And ever since then, I joke about with some of the guys, I've even told her that there's always this weird little brotherhood that I always have. And there's two people that are in this weird little brotherhood with me where no matter what I do, no matter where I go, any kind of E-Fed shit, if I ever need anything, there's two guys I always know I can come to, and that's you and Baron.
Yeah. Well, it's a trust. It's a trust situation where, and I like to build that with as many other competitors as possible, whereas sometimes I'll just assume, where it's like, okay, I'm cutting a promo, and I'm going to put it in their hands. I'm going to say some things that they can take it in multiple ways, and how they take it, then I will reciprocate it and come back at them.
Yep.
You operate that same way. I think a lot of the originals do. A lot of the new guys are doing it. A lot of the people that come from nowhere, there's a trust. That is the best feuds, the best matches, the best promos are formed from the trust for an opponent. It works the same way in real wrestling in a match. If you don't trust your opponent, you're going to be scared to take those risks, and it's in those risks, it's in those new steps outside the comfort zone where the best material comes from. It's when you're scared to step outside that box. It's when you're scared to interact with your opponent and bounce off one another that you just get the bland stuff that gets forgotten. It's put away. It gets buried in the pages. You might remember it, but no one else will.
Exactly.
So, but, we're getting kind of close to the end of our time here. What we're going to do, I think what we should do is we're going to end it with a couple things. Again, Chelsea, Matt, I want to thank you guys so much for being on here. We're definitely getting the both of you on here again often. I want to hear about the progress of TOPW. I want to keep talking about UPW. I want to be talking about all this stuff. I want to get more into what we're seeing in promo wrestling. I want to hear more about how Mullins would just, use new gimmicks to befuddle us and drive us into rage. I want to hear all about that. So we're going to do that. We're going to have you guys on. But before we end it off, I'm going to ask just two questions and then a little bit of a game. So the first question is, doesn't have to be UPW, but I'm assuming it might be. Are there any newcomers, young guys, maybe underrated talents that we should be looking for right now?
Yes. You want to both answer this one together?
Yes,
I fucking
please.
love Patty McReynolds plays the Beast, and Justin Sane. I fucking love Patty, and he is. I swear to God, he's gonna be like. He's done really fucking well with what he's done so far, and when he gets brings even more to his character, he's gonna be one of the top dogs for sure. I fucking love Patty.
I don't disagree one bit. For me, it's actually Patty's brother, Casey. They're actual real life brothers.
In the family,
They are both in UPW, yes. With Patty, he has evolved in his whole other manner, and Casey has done it in a different way because Casey is the only person where he called me out and we started working and talking, and he wanted to
He's got
do
a
these
really
things.
creative mind.
He's got creativity out of his ass, and I love that about him. So if anybody's looking for two guys to really check out, I would say Casey Reynolds and Patty McReynolds. They play Azrael, Justin Sane, and the Beast.
Awesome. They sound, I've checked out some of that stuff. Correct me if I'm wrong, Azrael, he's the TV champion on Saturday.
Yep.
Yeah, so that I remember I just seen a promo not too long ago. I was scrolling through UPW. Great stuff. Again, so if you're listening to this, you want to check out some real talent, head over, check that. I mean, there's talent everywhere, but if you're looking for some specified, go there.
The water works down here?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
There you go. Hopefully your water's good in Michigan. Again, we said this last.
Not in Flint.
This is not the quality of show where we're going to get into these deep human questions of ethics.
Right.
Ethics of house for his title belts, but that you've ever had in the business so far. Is this the best time for you, Minnick? Chelsea, you haven't been around as long, but you probably still answer.
I missed the question.
Is this the time of eFeds now more fun? To clarify.
Oh yeah. Is this the best time that would you rate this at the top, or has there been better times? Seems like you guys are doing a lot of good. So
I would like to get yes and no. I say yes and no. I think we're evolving into a better time, but I do think there's quite a bit of power struggle going on between different places and people. If we could get everybody to work more together, it definitely could be the best time. I do miss a little bit of the simplicity of before we started doing more creative shit in UPW. But the creative shit is what's propelling us forward. So it's still a really great thing. If we could just get everybody on the same page and everybody's good, it'll be dope. I'm good with it.
And I will say yes and no too, but on different ways, just because the three of us go way back. I will say yes now, the time is so much better because we've evolved, not even as a game, but we've evolved as three different people here, 4 counting her right now. And to see where the game was when the three of us first came in, it was more of that Wild West. It was more of, there wasn't a lot of basis. It was more of wide open range, and I always looked at it as like a gigantic meadow, but there was no fences on the meadow, and everybody could just keep grazing. And with it at the time, that was great because that kind of was our attitude era. That was our point where a lot of people made their niches at the time. That's where the Stephen Barons, myself, the Litkeys, the Tima Underlays, the Eric Jessies, all of us kind of started making our niche. I would say no, though, in the aspect of back then, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun just because we didn't have to worry about all the extra things. We didn't have to worry about the creatives and the managements and the ownerships and all the behind-the-scenes stuff that people that aren't in those positions will never understand. But overall, do I feel like the landscape is a much better place than it was back then? Yes.
Well, there we go. I could probably say yes or no too. Mullen's probably similar. I'm not entirely sure. One word association. We're going to play this little game before we close it off. Going to name some names. One word association. If you want to expand on it, feel free. Don't go too crazy, but one word association, try your best. If it's a hyphened word or it's 3 words, look, Mullins and I aren't police. We're not cops. We're not going to penalize you. There's no end game that we're going to get some justice on this. So if it's a sentence, one sentence, we'll pass it. So let's start it off. Kieran Bell, one word association.
The Godfather.
Good one. Eric Jesse.
Jackass. Sorry,
Misunderstood.
You fucking snowflake and PC
No,
bitch.
no. This is a piece where I'm going to elaborate.
I love Eric. I do.
Eric is a misunderstood guy. because him and we don't see eye-to-eye business at all. The way that CPW is ran to the way that UPW is ran is very antitheses of each other. But the one thing I will say about with Eric on why he's misunderstood is the dude does have a lot of good ideas. It's just they come out in such dickish mannerisms.
Nigga, he said one sentence.
I elaborated, and I told him I was going to elaborate.
See, we're fin-
Oh, wait. Oh, I see CM Punk. Oh, there he is.
Dylan Mays, did you say it? Here, sorry.
Oh,
cut out.
I didn't
We
hear
didn't
you.
hear Dylan Mays.
Dylan Mays. Good person, shitty E-Fed owner.
Oh,
Self-consumed.
oh, a little bit of jab there. Oh,
Hey, I told
boy.
you you'd
I
get
think he's a
honesty.
very intelligent dude, but I think he's an egotistical prick sometimes too. So
Oh boy, I like honesty. That's what the show is all about. That's why Mullins is going to tell us all about his love for Alexa Bliss on next week's episode.
Oh, God, I'm sure.
Dylan Messerschmidt.
I love cowbell. I don't have anything to say besides I love cowbell.
I look
no problems.
no problems. I would compare him to the modern day. I called Paul Undertaker. I think Cowbell has Undertaker aspects as well. Sort of the most respected guy, one of the most respected guys. People look to him as a center. And hey, guess what? He's co-owner of Gary with me. And if you're not in Gary, you're not a part of the Gary lifestyle. And if you're not a part of the Gary lifestyle, what the hell are you doing with your life? Get in Gary. Sorry.
Back up.
Oh, sorry. Thomas Austin.
Next question.
I was gonna say remarkable.
Hey, she gets Look for Thomas. Hey, next question, we'll take it. But remarkable is nice too. Justin Klein.
Brilliantly creative, shitty in message. Creative out his ass, but he never realized where to turn it off.
Yeah.
He only broke character one time ever, and with me, and nobody really knows it, but I'll say it. When I left CPW and I took this 6 months off. Justin actually messaged me saying, that I was a hell of a competitor, and it was great to watch me around, and da-da-da-da-da. I have never seen pleasantries and the name Justin Klein ever attached to each other, so I always keep that as just like a holy hell, that really happened.
He did the same thing with me. Told me he voted for Obama. I was like, what the hell? That's when we were having the whole Democratic-Republican war. And so he's capable of being that good person. I think he just loves his character so much it's hard for him to escape. Like
Can't
you
turn
said.
off the heel.
CC Sheldon.
Piece of shit.
Fuck him.
Saskatchewan's own. Oh, man. And this last one, this one's right for you, Matt Minnick. If you remember, I think you will. Citizen X.
Oh, my God. Citizen X. She doesn't even know who Citizen X is. Fun fact to fill you guys in on who Citizen X is, who's going to tune in. Citizen X was somebody who popped up in CPW for a short time and blasted all this Nazi propaganda.
Shut up.
And he used the voice changer and everything, saying all this shit to myself and to Eric Jesse. And that was one of the few times where me and Eric have ever stood in solidarity. And
Please tell me it turned out to be Baron playing a joke.
No,
Okay.
Citizen X disappeared. But he said his piece in a very Nazi propagandic way. And Eric and I had some fun, and then Citizen X was gone, and I never heard from him again. But man, you really dug a name out of the dirt on that one. Holy cow, Brett.
Well, I will never forget that he cut this one promo, and he would never use his face, obviously. It was
Never.
like these black and white videos from like World War II, like Nazi soldiers marching, and there'd be this weird demonic. He found that, I don't even know. I ended up finding the video by Googling it. Just like loose Google. it was like this talk show with this guy playing the devil. Turns out it was this guy on public access television, and he was all about Hail Satan, Hail Hitler. So he would play that. He would play these black and white clips. He'd talk in this deep voice. Strange stuff. And I never even had a clue who it was. He might have even just been a nameless guy who tried to come in. Way too much heat.
Yeah, real quick too. Yeah, I never knew who he was. It was just more of after that night, he never showed his face again.
Mullins, were you Citizen X?
God, no.
Okay.
You sure about that? It wasn't Gimmick 8?
No, I would never say anything like that.
Okay. Well, the mystery continues. Yeah, I don't know. I just thought of him not too long ago. I thought of the crazy stuff.
Wow.
But,
I was expecting like other names like Walter Mann, not Citizen X. Wow, that caught me off guard.
yeah, I had to bring that up because that was one of the
bet.
strangest things.
It was. I'll never forget that guy. Even though I never knew who he was, I'll never forget those promos and the Nazi propaganda and everything. Good Lord.
I want chocolate.
What was crazy was he also he would copy people's profile pictures. He did it with Eric Jesse. Eric Jesse had that profile picture. I think he was painting, and he had a pink shirt. And he would take those and he'd make new Facebook accounts of people's names. And he had messaged me under like this new Eric. And I knew it wasn't him because I already had a convo open with Eric. But other people he had like tricked. I think he got Cybele. He had someone else. So he was doing all sorts of stuff. I think he was too in the know to not be someone that was around during that time. Not someone completely brand new. But regardless, hey. The people that remember still remember.
Yeah, we'll never forget that guy. Holy cow.
So that's how we're going to end this. We're going to end this with Citizen X because that's what we do on this show. We like to go into the absurdities of life. But once again, we're going to thank the both of you. We're going to have both of you on. Chelsea, if you're all right with it, I'd like to have an individual one with you on as well. Get into sort of...
Okay.
This is going to be about everyone in promo wrestling, and we want to get the people that are helping to lead the charge, the players, I might even try and get a couple spectators. I might get that in there, but we'll see how it works. But definitely going to get both of you guys on. You're fantastic. Thanks so much. Mullins, do you have anything to say to our two gracious guests?
Keep up the good work with UPW.
Thank you, sir.
There you go. Is there anything you guys want to promote? Last words sort of thing?
Well, to keep an eye out for TOPW, like I was saying, that starts May 28th. With UPW, we have shows Mondays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. Always come and check it out. Even if you don't want to participate or you don't want to, be active competitors, hey, you can always come in and check out the product if you want. One thing to you, Brett, that I've noticed with your last two videos, you've mentioned IW. You keep saying David Yoder. It's not David Yoder that owns IW. His name is David Jones.
Okay. David Jones. Okay, so there we go. I apologize. See, that's how much I know about IW. I'm not in it.
That's all you need to know. Don't worry about it.
Just a little clarification for
That's
you.
all you need. Don't worry about it.
That's fantastic. I got to get – well, there you go, David Jones. I got to get David Jones on here. Every time I mention them, anytime I bring them up, even in just conversation, it seems like a fed that's driving a lot of people creatively. They're liking it. They're loving it. A lot of people are excited about it. So I want to hear about it. And I should get more involved, even just as a spectator. But thank you for letting me know that for sure.
No problem, buddy.
All right. Well, that'll do it for episode number 3. Drop a comment, message us if you want to be on. Tell our guests how great they were because they were fantastic. And please, folks, this is my final call to you. Message Mullins and tell him he has no business around leather. He is ruining people's lives. The people at the leather shop have not slept in 48 days because this.
How many cows got to die for that title, Mullins?
Mullins, just please send him a message and say hashtag Mullins stop the leather. And if
Stop
you
the leather.
Stop
Don't
the
use
leather.
a box cutter. Use a hole punch or something next time.
Anything.
Well, you got to cut the leather.
Yeah, you cut it with a butcher knife, Mullins.
Now I know that. But they told me the box cut.
Please, hashtag Mullins stop the leather. But in the meantime, there we go. Thank you all. And
Thank you.
look for us. We're going to have probably 1 or 2 more this week. See you, folks.
Hey, guys.
Thank you.
Later.